This is Al Perry, and I'm back at my computer, and I have loaded the 4 images that we want to use in our panorama. These are images photographed within the last 2 or 3 weeks out in Colorado at the Garden of Gods near Colorado Springs. And in the foreground you will see the red sandstone rock, and in the background Pikes Peak. You notice a certain amount of overlap. This element in the picture on the right of this image matches the same elements on the left side of this image. So and this was this was 120 millimeter focal length. I shot this at f13 at 1.5 seconds. It's fairly early in the morning, actually a little bit before sunrise, and with just a little light in the sky. So a large f-stop to try to get the foreground and the Pikes Peak in focus. And you shot at a fairly low ISO, of course, on a tripod. Manual exposure, manual focus, manual, usually try to shoot manual white balance as well. At any rate, a certain amount of overlap. These are the 4 images that will go into our panorama. And what we're going to do is process these images within Adobe Camera Raw and into JPEGs. You'll also notice when I took the picture that I left quite a bit of room at the top and the bottom, because in most stitching programs, if you don't get the images perfectly level on that's where a lot of the cropping occurs. That's where a lot of the loss of image occurs. So you want to leave plenty up on top and bottom, and take an image or two. Actually, with this panel, I took 7 or 8 shots, so there's additional images to the left and right to make up a larger scene. But I usually shoot one blank in between each sequence of images to tell me where the start and the stop is. At any rate, we will go to File, and we're going to open in Camera Raw. That was our browser. Now we're in Camera Raw, and you'll see that the first image shows up along with the histogram. We got plenty of room left and right on the histogram. It's an early morning shot, and thus the fairly flat nature of the histogram. We're going to select all 4 images because we're going to process each of these one at a time. I have set even though this is a 17 megapixel camera, I've picked 6.3 megapixel. That's plenty of resolution to make up the composite panorama. I've made it 8-bit. I could make it 16-bit. In this case, I'm using 8-bit. And I will now save these images as JPEGs. You see this button on the left. I will save these, go directly within Camera Raw, and make a JPEG from these raw images. I have fixed, I'll synchronize these. I've selected them all now. I will synchronize them. I fixed their white balance exactly the way I shot them. I'm not going to make any changes because I manually exposed them. I want that exposure to hold in the conversion from RAW to JPEG. I can adjust my final print when I'm all done. But anyway, I want to fix the white balance in particular and all the exposure, so make blending easier, okay? So I'll fix those, and so all of these images will get the same treatment, and we'll save these images as JPEGs in the same folder, and we'll start that process. You can see the little time wheel going here. That's showing that we've got 4 remaining. It's processing the large raw files into smaller sized JPEGs, and we will then open those JPEGs. When we're finished here, we'll close out of here and open those and start our stitching program within Photoshop called Photo Merge. We're about half done processing these images at the moment. We've got 1 remaining, and when that's finished, we'll click Done, and we will open those images in Photoshop. And we can do that now. We're finished with the raw converter. We're back to the browser, and you notice the raw images are highlighted. Well, I'm going to highlight, now I want to highlight the JPEGs, because that's what we want to work with in the stitching program at this point. We could be using PT GUI or Panorama Maker. I just found that CS3 works pretty well, particularly on the blending of the skies and matching up of the images and overlap and so forth. It's much better than any prior version of Photoshop. So we've selected these in the browser, and we are going to now open those, okay? We're going to open we'll open those in Photoshop. And we've got Photoshop open. And we'll open each of the 4 images, and you can see that they have loaded. And now we go to the stitching program. And here's the 3 steps: file, automate, photo merge. That's what Photoshop calls their stitching program, photo merge. It's under the file, automate windows. And the layout, we could pick auto, perspective, cylindrical, interactive. Let's just use the auto and let it make its own panorama. And we've already opened the file, so we can click this tab called Add Open Files, and you'll see our 4 images, JPEGs, and we will start the process of letting Photoshop go through, and it has an action set to process these images. The first thing it attempts to do is find control points to align these images, and then it blends the merged points to give a seamless, high-resolution file or image of the 4 images that went into making this single image. Now you notice that the stitching program by itself lost some area, so we will come in and crop. But the first thing I want you to see is here's the left image to make up that. Here's the next image to the right. You notice this jagged line. Those are the control points used in the merger. And here's the 3rd image that was used. That part of the image was used in making this panorama. And here's the 4th image over to the right. So those exist as layers. This could be saved as a Photoshop file and preserving the layers. Let's just go through and flatten this thing. We'll flatten it. We don't need the layers at this stage because we're ready to crop this thing, get rid of the jagged edges. Let's just do a rough crop. We want about this much sky, this much foreground. You can see now why I left plenty of foreground. Give us some room to maneuver and pick the kind of print we want here. Let's just pick that, and we will crop it, and that's now the image that we can work with. This is one file. It can be, let's just do an auto adjustment to see what it looks like. And that's a little strong, so I'll come back and fade that, fade that contrast just a bit so it's not so contrasty. This is more as I saw the image, as I recall seeing it in my mind. I want you to see that the sky looks fairly uniform from image to image, and that's tough for a lot of programs to do, but it seems to have blended well. We've got good, I don't see any artifacts or points that don't match up in the final print. We can go through and sharpen this, print it. We can make a Pro Show Gold scrolling banner across our screen through the Ken Burns effect within Pro Show Gold. We could email it, we can print it on roll paper, or if you've got, let's see, this image is, let's see what the image size is here. This image size is, if we print it 300 DPI, it's 21 inches wide and 9.5 inches tall, the way we've cropped it, the way we've constructed it. Of course, we can make it larger or smaller, but that's the size that it would print up to 300 DPI with. So that completes, for this stage, the stitching program within Photoshop CS3 called Photo Merge. We took 4 images shot in the field on a fairly level tripod and all that to give us one final high resolution print. And this image, let me go back and look at it again, this is 6,313 pixels wide. So that's, that's like 22 roughly, it's probably, close to 20 megapixel. If you take a 20 megapixel camera to give you the same data that exists. And keep in mind, we only use 6.3 megapixel individual images in the makeup of this final print. So at this point, we can save it as a JPEG, as a Photoshop, or whatever we want it. So I'll be next going to a summary and wrap up of making panoramas. Thank you.